Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I hope you've all had a wonderful week so far. Today we're going to be diving into Cardano, and apologies for not getting an ADA video out over the weekend. We had a lot on. However, we did give you some key levels to watch for Cardano, like that $1 range that we are now trading below. But we're going to get into all that in this video. The main purpose of this video is going to be talking about the real problem with ADA at the moment. And in actual fact, it has nothing to do with Cardano as a blockchain, as a product, more your macro markets. And we're going to be talking about that. This is something, we released an interview yesterday with David Bell. Great hour and a half long conversation that I, of course, recorded for you guys, where we talk about sort of what's going on and potentially what's driving the cryptocurrency space right now. One of the main drivers is monetary policy. And on this chart, you can clearly see that. And what's happening with Bitcoin and what's sort of driving its price to the downside is, of course, going to affect not just Cardano, but the crypto space as a whole. So we're going to talk about that in this video. We'll look at Bitcoin. Also, I'm going to be showing you Google Trends for ADA because there's not a great retail involvement or interest at the moment in Cardano. This, coupled with the overall sentiment and a lot of other things that are going on at the moment, paint the kind of picture that we need. So let's get into it all, guys. The overall market is selling off. Of course, Bitcoin is really dictating this, as it is still that tide that rises and sinks all ships, some altcoins more than others. Typically, you know, the lower down you get, the more kind of volatile moves you're going to see. Let's start with Bitcoin very quickly, just so you can get an overall kind of view of what's taking place. We can see that we did indeed break out of this ascending triangle, only to find ourselves now back in it after sort of setting up what we were looking at over here, which was a descending triangle. And now you're sort of consolidating in it. So you really need to watch the lower end of this trend line. So around about your 40K is where you don't want to see a break of, because then you're potentially coming out and invalidating a potential support line that has held you for multi-months now, which I don't think would be too positive. Let's dive into ADA, and then we're going to talk about macro markets and why that's really affecting Cardano at the moment. It amazes me that nobody is really talking about this. We have been saying that we've been cautiously optimistic for a while now. How can you be anything but optimistic on the crypto space? I mean, it is a technological revolution that is very early in terms of adoption or usage or anything. You know, it's still a space that's being built, and I think it has a long, bright future. And I think long term, crypto is going to do just fine. But right now, I think short term, we're in for a lot of volatility. And this is sort of the headwind, if you will, from external markets and really the macroeconomic backdrop, which, you know, there's a lot taking place in. And we'll talk about the correlation in just a second. So let's dive into ADA very quickly. We'll start on the smaller time frames. We'll start with a daily. This is a structure that we've been watching for a while now. This, of course, would have given us our reverse head and shoulders, which is something that we were looking for and somewhat hoping for. The key level of resistance that we gave you guys to watch and have been talking about for a while now was this sort of $1 mark. Really, you know, somewhat to me, or at this stage, invalidating what could have been a head and shoulders, because your right shoulder is showing strength instead of weakness in regards to this sort of taking place and this pattern playing out. So typically for a head and shoulders, what you want to look for is a weak right shoulder and a stronger left shoulder. It kind of already gives you a clue that it's going in that direction. You've seen this sell-off be pretty significant, and you're now below this line. The issue with this is, if you look how significant it is, you know, where we currently are, if you sell off below this, what I'm watching for now is Cardano has indeed sold off below it. But if it comes back up and sees some kind of a rejection here or around here, that's probably an indicator that you're going lower in the trend. And what we need to see now is a decisive move to the upside, in my opinion. You know, it's very much at the moment, you know, you've got the higher high. If you come down and put a lower low in, then your entire sort of larger trend is still in play, and you've actually invalidated any kind of a breakaway from that. So it's a pretty key level at the moment. And really, back to the topic of this video, what is the problem with ADA? Well, the problem with ADA actually hasn't got anything to do with ADA in terms of a blockchain, and it's why we're invested in it. You know, it's never been in such a good position. There's a lot coming. We've got the June Vasil hard fork, and you know, we've got the blockchain working and being built, and lots of great innovation happening on top of it, the DeFi ecosystem and everything. You know, there's lots of fundamental reasons to be bullish on ADA. But right now, the macro backdrop, the macro downer, in my opinion, is really playing havoc on the cryptocurrency market. And in the interview that we did, we released it yesterday with David. Well worth a watch, guys, because we talk about a lot of things that may be new to some of you crypto investors, yet they directly affect you. Is we spoke about interest rates, we spoke about the euro dollars futures, which is kind of like a speculation on the interest rate hikes and kind of almost shows you what markets are pricing in. So you can see, as this upticked, you can see just the correlation between this move here to the upside for interest rates getting priced in, and Bitcoin. Very, very correlated. And this is exactly what's moving the markets. And also we saw that move to the upside for Bitcoin after the 25 basis point hike, kind of confirming to markets, because this actually has them at, I think 1.6% interest rate hikes. 25 basis points doesn't quite account to that. So it's on the high side. This showed a bit of relief. But I feel like everything the Fed has said at the moment is really kind of pushing things. One big thing to watch, of course, is a variable of factors that go into moving the Bitcoin price and thus the cryptocurrency market. One big thing to watch is interest rates, because monetary policy is designed, certainly in the form of upping interest rates, to somewhat kill off demand and take the wind out of your kind of assets, sales, if you will, that they had created from March 2020. So that's what's moving overall markets at the moment. And to ignore that, given everything that's going on, I think is rather foolish. Yes, we're extremely bullish on the crypto space, but certainly whilst all this is going on, it does not spell it's not the sort of fertile ground for a raging bull market, put it that way. And you can see that this sell-off over here was different to this one, and that's because I do genuinely believe that you had a lot of institutions exiting the market here. That's what I think took place. I think you had institutions exiting over here, and this is why it looks like a very structured exit. And now, the reason the reason, there's a number of reasons for me thinking this, but one of the big ones is just the correlation we've seen with these sort of traditional financial equities, namely stock markets, and stock indexes. So the Nasdaq is a big one. The S&P is also one. This sell-off over here was pretty much at the same time. In fact, it's sort of front run because Bitcoin is a higher beta with crypto, the sell-off for the stock market, which was largely caused by people pricing in interest rates, and Bitcoin is moving in a similar fashion, which doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. Long term, I'm very, very bullish, and I think crypto is going to do well. Over the next 5 years, I think Bitcoin in the crypto space is going to be the best performing asset in terms of APY, or ROI, I should say. However, I think in the short term, there's a lot of turbulence that we've got to go through, and it's part of anything. And one good way to look at this kind of downtrend is that it really purifies markets. It gets rid of a lot of the crap, if you will. So there are positives to what's happening now. Ultimately, nobody wants to see the price go lower. We will see. It's going to be a revealing week what Cardano and the crypto space does, because do we continue the downtrend? Do we kind of come back, test some of these lower lines of trend lines, and see that continuation to the downside, or do we see a sharp uptick? And if we do see an uptick, it's going to have to be a convincing one, in my opinion. And like I say, one real thing to watch for ADA is when we talk, I'll just get rid of that. When we talk about, this $1 mark, how significant it is, you need to see that it doesn't now become resistance, having been support for a sort of multi-year period. That's what we're really watching for. And again, fundamentally, there's 1,000,001 reasons to be bullish on Cardano. The macro backdrop, though, doesn't support that. And this is a typical case of markets moving out of sync with the assets that they're actually trying to value. It's apparent to me that that's the case here, and that markets are pricing in markets, macroeconomics, and not the assets that they're trying to represent. They're moving off a whole variety of things other than how well is Cardano doing, what's the kind of user base, which we all see continue to grow and grow. So that is really all I have for you in this video. It's just a bit of an outlook, giving, sort of showing people where to look for some of the answers of what's happening in our space right now, and how we're potentially playing this. And you can also see that retail involvement is very low for the likes of ADA. This is over the past 12 months. You can see it's at a pretty much low point, and of course this is very correlated with the price, because retail kind of loses interest when the price declines. So that's really what I have for you in this video, guys. If you have enjoyed this content, a like is always appreciated. So is a comment. Try and have a good Monday despite the market action, and I'll see you all in the next YouTube video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.